So let me do a quick poll here, and I don't want to see a show of hands because I'm not looking at the monitor and I wouldn't see it anyway. Do either of you use Fire TV, Amazon's Fire TV service?
No, I don't.
Stephen Green, I thought there was nothing in the world of video that you wouldn't do. Bill,
that was a nasty rumor from the mid-'90s.
You and Rob Lowe. And then,
never met him in person.
Follow-up question. I'm sorry, it reminds me of a line that he had in, I believe, Wayne's World that I can't repeat here. But do either of you use Roku?
No.
No. I know about them both, obviously.
I've used Roku in the past.
Let me ask about this. The internal combustion engine.
Yes, although mine's a diesel.
Diesel's pretty close to communism.
So here's why I asked that. As some of our viewers may know, as our members may know, we're now on Fire TV. You can actually go to your Fire TV, and there's a little thing at the top that's among the choices up there. It says apps, and you can go to the apps and download the Bill Whittle Network app. So you can now watch in your living room on your TV or your bedroom, wherever you happen to, wherever TVs are sold, and you can see these shows. Except for Backstage, we're still keeping that behind the veil. Yeah. And you can watch Bill Whittle now, and you can watch Right Angle on Fire TV. In addition, so we said this last week and said, hey, if you have any other ideas of where we should be seen, let us know. Unfortunately, people took that literally, like they thought that I really wanted to know. And so they sent a couple of emails over. Several people have said, hey, how about Roku? And I looked into Roku, and I actually have a Roku device as well as a Fire TV device and a Fire tablet, so I can see all this stuff. I'm all over the place technologically. But anyway, Roku, it turns out, has something like 35 million users. So that's big. There are lots of people out there using Roku. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, we're exploring that. Now, I will tell you, it was pretty easy to set up the Fire TV app because it just takes the video feed from YouTube and channels it right through to Fire TV. Roku, on the other hand, expects us to find a way to host our videos not on YouTube. And so we're exploring that.
Do we host them on Roku, or do we have to host them somewhere else?
No, you host them somewhere else.
They want the actual ROM.movie file on the website or something that it would go to?
Yeah, it's not. You don't put the videos on Roku. You have to use either like a content distribution network or something like AWS.
Not YouTube.
Amazon Web Services. Yeah, Vimeo Pro. If you have Vimeo Pro, do we have Vimeo Pro?
We do. Yes, we do.
Do we? Okay, so maybe we can do it there.
Okay.
And so I'm continuing to pursue this for those of you who are writing to us about this. So we actually listen. The whole point of this is we listen to what our members say. Our member, and because this is members only, I can say his name, John Donchez wrote to us, and I happen to know John personally. He wrote to us and said, hey, can you guys be on Fire TV? Within less than 24 hours, we were on Fire TV.
That's cool. And, we're hoping one of these years to get on that Real Media.
The Real Media. I was reading about that on your MySpace page. It was great.
That's the best place for all of your favorite Real Media news items.
I'm surprised. Does it still exist?
MySpace?
I don't. I think MySpace might still be around.
You would think that hipsters would be on there, ironically, in droves.
Yeah, that's true. They're all using their antique typewriters on MySpace.
I'm just saying, it's so ironic, It's like, what, do you have a web page? You have a Facebook page? I have a MySpace page.
That's right.
And it was the first face I saw when I just pulled up MySpace right now. Trent Reznor. So you want to talk about an older hipster who is kind of slumming
9 Inch Nails
for kicks? Yeah, 9 Inch Nails on MySpace. There he is.
I had no idea who Trent Reznor was.
9 Inch Nails.
It's great music.
So
got to be in the right mood.
But one of their songs. So anyway, the point is we are striving to please our members and following up with them aggressively to help them to answer questions. And we get some very interesting questions. For example, we learned today that Bill doesn't know how to pronounce the name of one of the states in our union.
And, Nevada.
So
you mean Nevada?
Yeah, that's the one. But apparently we could pull the video. Media Matters probably pulled this video already. And we'll find you mispronouncing it.
Nevada.
So that's been helpful. We found out from another viewer that our website was gone. And so I sent the link back from the website.
Replaced by a much better website.
That's right. And that was the thrust of it. After a little back and forth on email, he's like, oh, that's your website?
This is going to be studied in business schools throughout the rest of time, you know? Yeah. The people came to the website, didn't recognize it, so they couldn't get to it because it looked so good.
Well, I think there were two problems. Number one, it loaded.
There's your first mistake.
And he went to it. And then the other was he saw it and didn't recognize it. So he thought we had gone offline. There are a lot of little things like that come to us, and I take each one of them seriously, and then I laugh about them later. But we really do respond to our members. And one of the benefits that you'll find if you go to the What is Membership link on the page, which you can only see if you're logged out. But if you go to that link, one of the things you'll see is responsive customer service. And Bill, early on when we were talking late last year, early this year, said we really want to show the members that we love them and that we are listening to them and that we want to serve them. And so we've done everything we can to make that happen. Not just me or Bill, but Shelley back in the mothership somewhere off the coast of America. All of us are trying to work together. Is she in the next room now, Bill?
Not yet.
Anyway, so thank you for all that. So the reason why we got together here is to have some idle chit chat. And during the course of this, we may actually discuss what we want to do this week on our right angle program. And I've got a number of topics here, gentlemen, and you really need to help me narrow it down. I've already thrown out the one where people protesting in the streets of Hong Kong are holding up a full color picture of Rocky Balboa with Donald Trump's head. And the only reason I dispense with that is because we're not the most, graphically diverse and dynamic show on the internet.
So, could arrange to put a still up. I mean, let's not completely trash our abilities. We could grab a still and insert that into the shows. We've done many times.
I've got a couple of shots for you this week. It's going to be very high tech stuff.
I'm not saying we're unable, but we may be unwilling.
Oh, well, that's different.
So anyway, if you want to, and this is a note to Mark, our editor, if you want to throw that picture in just then when I was talking about that, at least our members will see it because we're not going to do a show about it. But there were a couple of topics that I saw, guys, and you can help me with this. And two of them are related, so I think I definitely want to do an episode on this. I'll do this first. Apparently, the Trump administration has proposed new regulations that if they pass through the whole screening process would go into effect next year, authorizing the Homeland Security Department to do facial scans on every person traveling into or out of the United States.
Including American citizens for the first time.
Including America. Well, I don't, that phrase "for the first time" I call into question. But
you may be
in
right.
This context,
I withdraw the phrase.
And then related to this, I saw another story where Chinese scientists are working on something that is also in the United States is being researched. Chinese scientists are working on ways to identify or produce a visual facial image based on DNA. And the accusation is they want to use this in order to further marginalize and persecute the Uyghur people and other minority groups within China. And apparently, all of those folks are required to get regular blood tests. And when they give those blood tests, then the Chinese government can capture their DNA. And when they have their DNA, they can conduct this process called DNA phenotyping, which essentially creates a profile of what these people would look like. Now, it can't do everything because it can't gauge how fat or skinny you are, sure, but it does do a pretty good job of identifying sort of racial characteristics and other things that allow them to have an image of a face, or at least one that they could use to sweep up large numbers of people who resembled that.
Yeah.
In case you think this is just a crazy Chinese idea, in the United States, Maryland police have already used such technology to identify a body, a victim that they didn't know who it was.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. That was a year or two ago. I think.
Yes, and
I
back
mean, China,
Go ahead.
China's like having 1.2 billion Mengelas on the planet, you know? I mean, you can get all kinds of interesting data out of it, but none of it is ethical and most of it is terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, back in 2015, North Carolina police actually used this kind of technology to, in effect, get a man to confess. Because they were able to get a reasonable facsimile of this guy's face, and ultimately then he confessed to the crime. So I'm more attuned to this right now, I'll be honest with you, because on audiobook right now, I'm listening to Ed Snowden's book that came out recently. It's called Permanent Record. You remember Edward Snowden, the guy who was alleged to have taken, in fact, openly confessed to have taken a bunch of NSA documents and released them to journalists. He said in the interest of individual liberty, and of course he was treated as a spy and fled. And anyway, the stuff that Ed Snowden is saying in this book, guys, frankly, is terrifying when it comes to individual liberty. And when you said, Steve, for the first time, that's why I pulled up short at that phrase.
Yeah, I believe it was it would be the first time that TSA would do it to American citizens coming into or leaving the country. But the real qualifier there is TSA.
I just realized that we're probably within 4 or 5 years of a Supreme Court case on this issue, some kind of Supreme Court ruling. Somebody's gonna come forward with a claim that it violates their right to privacy and so on. Well, there is no right to privacy, but their ability to move about freely in the country, and somewhere or another there's going to be a Supreme Court ruling on whether or not big tech or law enforcement has the right to do this without your permission. I personally think that in the case, at least as my first pass at it, it is very useful in solving crimes and especially identifying victims, which is of enormous importance to the families of the victims. And I think it needs to be treated on the same level as a search warrant. I think it needs to be a case made for probable cause and so on, and a judge authorizing the use of this technology and that kind of thing. But that's just my first take on it. That's to reconstruct victims. That's not. I don't think the American people need to be biometrically filed, but they are, and it's already done, and that horse has left the barn.
It exists in the virtual world already, and it has for a long time, thanks to mostly to JavaScript, the web programming language. The way I explained it to whoever the hell it was I was explaining it to, imagine you're going to the mall and you're not doing anything more innocuous than buying a couple of sports shirts and some socks. But as you go from store to store, there's a guy who just follows you around and whispers in everybody's ear what it is you're looking at, what it is you're buying, how much you paid, and all the rest. And it's not that you're up to anything wrong. As I said, you just nothing more innocuous than buying a couple of shirts and maybe some socks. But at some point, you're going to want to punch that guy in the mouth.
Yeah, I had a breakthrough realization about this a couple weeks ago, and that realization is you shouldn't take this personally. They're not interested in your data; they're interested in all data, of which you are a particle.
Yes,
and you are a particle that can help them with their AI analysis of what to sell, how to sell it, and so on. Where you're going, what you're doing. There's a needless to say.
Well, that's the corporate world.
Well, needless to say, there's a very, very dark side to this. But I think the primary motivation for it is knowing that, hey, at 4:00, Bill goes to lunch at Burger King, so maybe we'll pop a McDonald's ad up in front of him or something like that. That's where I think most of the effort is currently. And I don't want
to do it in the real world.
I don't want to minimize the
agencies.
threat. I'm not minimizing the threat at all. I think the threat's much worse than we think. But I do think that when it comes to this kind of thing, the idea that, when I say don't take it personally, I think that gives you more clarity into what's actually going on and what they want to be going on. It's not so much that they're interested in tracking you because they want to get you on something. I think I know what they're doing is they're putting together a database of human behavior, correlating all kinds of things through AI that normally wouldn't make any sense. And I came up with an interesting analogy for that, which I'll say for the episode if you decide to do it, which I think you should.
I think that there was a time, Bill, when that was entirely true because they were really only looking to mass market to groups. And when you're talking about the corporate side,
we're not talking about marketing here. We're talking about something much deeper than marketing.
Well, yes, there are two aspects of this. One is the idea of private businesses doing this kind of thing. And I think that there was a time when mass marketing was the primary tool when they would say, yeah, we're just interested in consumer behavior and being able to understand how different kinds of people do things so we can target them. Now that targeting is down to the individual, I think that's different. Now they do want to know specifically, what does Bill Whittle like? Where does he go? What does he do? What's he looking at?
Yes, but that's done by AI. That's just looking at me as one of 200, 300 million data points and trying to figure out. But they're not really looking at me. They're not sitting, not a team of people going around, what's Bill going to do next? I think that is to underestimate the power of what they're doing.
Now, the other side of it is the government side of it. And the point that Snowden was making was that the NSA had set up a system that was able to scrape up basically all of the metadata so that they would have that kind of information about where you were, what you were doing, how you were doing it, what you were buying, and all that kind of stuff, who you were talking to. And they'd have all of that. And not only did they want to sweep it all up, they wanted to keep it all forever. So that should there come a time when they needed to find out something about you, for example, whether you were the dead body in the ditch or the guy who shot the dead body in the ditch.
That's right.
Or the guy who had unpopular political opinions.
Then it gets very personal, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was his fear, or at least as far as I am in the book.
It was my fear too. I think that to think that they're watching me was absolutely true and all the dangers inherent in that, but that what they're actually doing is bigger than this. And if you think about it from a personal level, I think you lose the thrust of where they're actually going with this. It's not so much that they want to be able to, censor me because of a thought crime or they're soaking up so much data because they're trying to produce a database of human behavior. And I personally believe that given the work that Google's doing on things like anti-aging, on computer human interfaces, massive parallel processing, I think that they want this data because they're using it to build themselves into artificial intelligences. That's what I think.
Well, and one of the things that Snowden says is that while the popular conception is that if the government is eavesdropping, it wants to hear the content of your conversations, for example, he said they're not really interested in the content of your conversations. They don't need that. What they need to know is, with whom are you communicating? When are you doing it? What is the pattern of your behavior? Where are you going? All that kind of stuff. Because anytime if it comes a point where they need to see you as a threat to the state, as it were, then they will be able to build the profile from that. And they don't really care what you were talking about on the phone. They can just establish a pattern that you were talking to a guy in Syria on the phone every once in a while, for example, or a guy in Detroit, whoever it happens to be. So anyway, all of this, I be honest with you that the Snowden book is a very compelling, well-written piece. And it has really pulled me up short in many ways, because I think I was kind of one of those ones that says, well, I don't care what the government is listening to because I've got nothing to hide. And,
that's a trap.
Yeah. The upshot of it is everybody has something to hide because everybody is breaking some kind of law, probably daily. And that case can be built against you very quickly, and you can be marginalized very rapidly or jailed or executed, depending on what's going on in the government at the time.
Maybe I should save this for the segment, but I think if I don't complete this thought now, I'm going to lose it before we actually tape it. So I'll have to repeat myself a little later today. But the American people are supposed to be able to threaten the state in 2, 4, and 6 year cycles. It's called free elections. And that is our constitutional right to throw the bastards out on a regular schedule. And we saw in 2016 the deep state, if we want to call it that. I don't like the term, but I don't know what else to use. The deep state trying to determine the results of an election and then to try and undo the results of that election. And what we might consider today, just 3 years later, to be a very primitive means of doing so. once this electronic infrastructure is in place, that a very primitive failed attempt in 2016, I think, becomes a very real and very permanent, effective takeover going down the line.
Yeah, I know Steve posted a picture, a screen grab of an email that he received from a very clumsy extortionist who was trying to
Yes.
trying to imply that he had Steve's browsing data, and for a mere $980 or something,
In Bitcoin.
yes, in Bitcoin, that he'd be glad to be quiet about it. But that kind of information is already in the hands of the NSA. And the further advance that we're talking about in this particular story is the idea of being able to assemble a reasonable image of your face based on nothing but DNA.
Yeah. We got a little off into the weeds on that.
Yeah, but I think it's all connected, and this is just kind of the next step in that, and connected with that Homeland Security, possible regulation under the Trump administration of saying, anytime I pass in or out of the country, the government gets a picture of me. We'll talk
when
about
you come in,
Yeah,
when
not
you come
just a
into
picture,
LA,
a
you
3D
come into
model
LA,
scan.
you have to put your passport in, and then this thing comes up and takes your picture, and then you've got this receipt of your face, and you have to take it to the guy at the counter, and I remember seeing this in Oslo, thinking, oh my God, what a socialist nightmare, and then 2 days later, I got back to LA, and it's the exact same machine.
Yeah.
Comes up to a certain height, takes your picture, prints it out, compares it to your passport picture and your passport number and all the rest of this stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure we'll have a bunch of people viewing this who say, oh, you naive people, this is already happening. Don't get all lathered up about it. Everything's fine. But, little by little, we find out about these things and suddenly realize that, we're in the Truman Show, and I'm Truman.
We're all Truman.
We're all Truman now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the one I'd like to do, I think, as our regular episode. And then I'm going to give you I'm not going to give you two choices. This one's clearly the better one. So there's a rapper whose name I believe is T.I., who apparently on a podcast of some sort was discussing how on an annual basis he takes his teenage daughter into the gynecologist and has her hymen examined. Essentially conducts a virginity test. As a result of this, there are several legislators in the state of New York who have introduced a bill to make virginity tests illegal, and as a violation of obviously individual privacy. And then the story goes on to explain that such virginity tests can't actually determine virginity, because there are many reasons why somebody's hymen would not be intact, including from exercise, from use of feminine hygiene products. Some people are born, and by people I mean women, for those of you who are still identifying that way, some are born, they don't even have this membrane. And so the test would be fruitless. Now, the reason why there's such an uproar about it is because there are countries, and largely Muslim majority countries, where this kind of testing is done to determine the virtue of a 12 or 13-year-old girl to make sure she's marriageable. So it just, as the story, the more I read into it, the weirder it got. So here are lawmakers proposing a law based on, oh, by the way, the rapper says on the podcast, they were just kind of joking around, and he really does respect his now 18-year-old daughter, and they're concerned about, her protecting her and all this kind of stuff. So it just kept going into layers of weirdness, where immediately some rapper says something, some legislator comes up with some legislation, some doctor comes out and says, well, it doesn't matter anyway because the test is totally ineffective. Meanwhile, a big chunk of the world has a religious conviction that you need to perform this kind of test. And I was like, how did we get here?
Slowly.
The short answer is the age-old political instinct to do something based on some real or imagined scare.
So, yeah, let's talk about that. And frankly, I was reluctant at first because I thought, this isn't a real problem in the country. So it's like
Apparently, it's not even a real problem for T.I. and his daughter.
it may not even be a problem for T.I. and his daughter. It's certainly not a problem for the New York State Legislature, or frankly for the news source that decided that this was a story, and now they've sucked us into it. Oh, the New York Times. It's actually a New York Times story.
That's a local outlet.
Yes, it's a small.
New York Times is like the Inquirer, but without the credibility.
So anyway, there we have it. There are no laws that ban such testing in the United States, but in a 2016 survey, 288 doctors were surveyed, and they found that 1 in 10 of them had treated patients who requested virginity tests in the previous 12 months.
You may as well try and outlaw astrology. It's just silly and useless, and people are going to indulge in it anyway.
Well, and the irony of it is, for those, if somebody were to engage in this kind of testing, put their daughter through this, the very process of determining one's virginity is a violation of their body. You've got to get in there and look.
Yeah.
So anyway, more fodder for the outrage machine. Stephen Green.
Yes, indeed.
You're coming off a big week of a lightning round, and I'm sure you're exhausted. But let's go ahead and let you do one show this week anyway.
Oh, what the hell! It sounds like fun. First, I just wanted to mention that we're on that Fire TV, that Amazon thing now. Okay, that means you'll be able to watch this show on your 65-inch 4K television, and I'm begging you not to. Really. You could put us on a regular 40-inch HD screen, but I wouldn't do that either. I would watch this show ideally on a worn out VHS on a Zenith no bigger than 13 inches diagonal.
I'd ideally watch it on a transistor radio if you really want.
That would be ideal, yeah. But
honey,
for people
warm
who
up
need
the
video,
Magnavox. Yeah, I guess you will be able to either. We have different qualities of cameras here too. When they look at your picture, Steve, I think they're going to go, well, that's some beautiful boudoir photography there. But when
I
they
actually
look at
smeared
mine,
the lens with jelly, grape jelly.
Right. When they look at mine, I think they'll become fearful that they might fall into one of my pores.
And mine looks like a painting on Night Gallery.
They had some good
so that's
episodes
not
of that show.
That, I take it, is not your topic. Oh, by the way,
No.
I didn't mention this, but related to that, if you say, Alexa, play Bill Whittle Network on TuneIn Radio, you'll get to hear our podcast versions of these shows.
Oh, that's so cool.
You can have it do the podcast by just talking.
But first, Alexa says, "You sure you want to do that?"
That's right.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't play that.
Homie, don't play that.
My topic.
Yes.
Usually, especially on the lightning rounds, but just week to week, I'm usually the headline guy. I like talking about whatever the hot news story is, but on occasion, I like to go a little deeper, maybe something a little more philosophical. And so this week, I want the three of us to delve into one of those less trendy, more thinky questions.
You're scaring me.
What the hell's wrong with Joe Biden? Have you seen the week this guy had?
How much time have you got?
Oh,
was this was any of this the cheering episode that kind of faded away so quickly that it was embarrassing?
I'm not sure I know about this one. What happened?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch the video because it was like one of those videos embedded in a tweet, embedded in a blog, and so it wouldn't play on my device. But apparently, like somebody at a Joe Biden rally got everybody, sort of chanting "We love Biden" or something. But it kind of it started strong for about one go round, and then started to dwindle away very quickly.
Didn't have the momentum they thought it might have.
No, but that might be a really cute way to close. The two examples that I came up with this week for you guys. The first one is Joe's hairy legs story.
What?
Oh my God, this thing! And then
Are these the SOTs you sent us?
Yes,
Okay.
Biden is going off on another one of his word salad. Actually, it's not even, he's gone past word salad. It's now word vomit. It's just this stuff comes out and up, and it's awful. And I'm not sure how to describe this to you. I'll have to play it. But somebody on the internet, because the internet is filled with mad, evil geniuses, made a cartoon version of Biden in the swimming pool where this story comes from, and they animated it. And it's his words. It's the unretouched audio with this cartoon that we're going to run. And it's only about 25, 26 seconds long. And the other one was his wife, Jill, who has a non-medical doctorate of some kind.
Dr. Jill.
Yeah, I'm not going to call her that. Unless she can prescribe me some really fun pills, I'm not calling you doctor.
She will be willing to perform
rule.
a virginity test on you.
Well, she's going to be either disappointed or something. I don't know. My point was this. Oh, so she's introducing him, doing the great big, this is why I love Joe speech. And she's gesturing out with her hand like this. And
oh, yes.
And you saw this.
Yes.
And she's waving, not really advertently, in front of Joe's face. And Biden's making this strange face as his wife's hand is waving in front of him. And then he just reaches out and bites her finger.
He just leans over like a horse and bites her finger with those giant horse teeth of his.
That's the common man touch.
That is.
He's a playful guy. He's not a politician like the kind you might expect if you've been in the Senate for 30 years.
I think I would honestly rather see Bill Clinton drop trow in front of me than watch that video again. So I'm gonna play.
This is like the I'd rather be red than dead kind of argument. You don't have to be either, and I don't need to see either. And yeah.
Well, and you would think that Joe Biden would avoid anything that looked like inappropriate touching, like just
can't help himself. Can't help himself.
So, okay, here's a little bit. Here's the transcript of Joe. And as I said, we'll play the video, the cartoon video with the actual Joe Biden audio in it. It says, oh, and by the way, I'd sit on the stand, the lifeguard stand he means, is when he was a lifeguard, and it'd get hot. And I got hairy legs that turned blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight. Then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I loved kids jumping on my lap.
This is all in one stream of consciousness?
Yeah, this is all one.
I learned about roaches?
Yeah, roaches.
Brooches?
I don't know roaches. I don't know, Bill. It's word vomit.
Is it the roaches that are constantly crawling up his legs? Is that
No.
Are you sure? Are you sure he wasn't?
Get him off me!
Was he at some sort of poetry slam?
No.
Oh God, Joe Biden, the beatnik.
That's
he was at Alzheimer's poetry slam.
So clearly, we have a lot to work with this week.
Oh, and they call this work.
And
okay.
Kamala Harris dropped out today. Just
Did
minutes
she really?
before we went on the show, and she's got to be thinking, I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. The old,
she was done when who was the woman who just
Tulsi
took her?
Was it Tulsi
Tulsi?
Gabbard? Yeah.
Tulsi.
She destroyed her. You did this. You did this. You did this. You let this person sit in jail with it. Done. She was over. It was over.
Yeah.
Tulsi is the best eviscerator of feminist politicians you've ever seen. They literally yesterday, Kamala Harris got the endorsement of, who was it? It wasn't Gavin Newsom. Who was it? It's like some big California politician.
Jerry Brown?
Stood up for her for the first time, and then the next day she's out.
Must have been Joe Biden. It's the Biden touch.
Wow.
Well,
so it's gonna be a fun segment, I hope. Oh, that poor guy.
By the way, back she goes to just being the most attractive state attorney general in the country, according to former President Barack Obama. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Thank
God that Democrats aren't sexist cliche mongers who demean women by the constant references to their opinions. Thank God it's only Republicans that do that.
That's right.
Oh, well, the thing is, Obama, he is slyly mean, and I mean publicly cruel. I remember It was at something while he was still president, some Democratic fundraiser type thing, I think, where Debbie Wasserman Schultz was there. And the reason I think it was a fundraiser thing is she was a DNC chair at the time. And whatever you want to say about her, pro or con, she is just not the most attractive person that's ever been on TV, and that's on the.
And she doesn't help. She doesn't help her case with that wet dog kind of hairstyle she had for 100 years.
And Obama, in front of this crowd, praised her pretty smile, which is just not her best feature, to say the least. She's got a nice personality. And I felt so sick. He was just so publicly cruel to that woman, who, love her or hate her, was working her butt off for his party, and Wow. I hate that guy.
I do too.
Okay. Which makes a great segue. I hate that guy. Bill Whittle. It's your turn.
Smooth.
Well, since we're already at 35 minutes, I'll make this brief. Yeah, this
will now be the longest Backstage episode ever, unless you are succinct.
I will be. There were two stories that I wanted to do, and I wrestled with which one I wanted to do, and then I decided to do them both, even though they don't seem to be connected. They are connected. One of them is that for the first time in 70 years, we became an net exporting nation, exported more oil than we brought in. That is a fundamental change in where the country is. And then the second one is Kanye West's new video, where he's basically saying, avoid these vipers that are trying to intimidate your kids, and basically get in line and follow Jesus, listen and obey. No more living for the culture. We nobody's slave. Both of these things are in fact connected. And the way they're connected, I realized, is to the degree that I can look ahead of what's coming. It feels like we've been on this constant kind of like this sort of roller coaster into hell. But these things tell me I can actually see the bottom of this thing starting to come up.
Well, that bottom is what you call peak progressivism, Bill.
Yeah, that's right. And signs are everywhere that this is really starting to change, really starting to change. So it was progressivism that got us, Barack Obama and oh no, we can't drill for oil or anything or gas and lower prices and hire more Americans, because that will be good for Republicans if people are doing well. So therefore, let's have a climate crisis of some kind. And then the Kanye thing is like, I know most of the people who watch this show don't understand how important this is, how fundamentally important this is. This is the antithesis, really, because we're going back about 70 years now for the petroleum thing. And the last time that we were a petroleum exporting nation was probably right around the time Elvis Presley hit the scene. And Elvis Presley was seen by the American people as this kind of really popular guy who is leading the country out into lewd territory. And I'm seeing right now a really popular guy who's leading the country back from lewd territory. And it's astonishing. It's,
what was I going to note here? The oil exporting thing. By the way, for those of you who lived through this era, in the mid-1970s, we created the Department of Energy because of this problem we had with having to import all our oil from these Middle East, where it was, a powder keg and people hate us and stuff like that. And really, the federal government is now spending like $50 billion a year to try to make us energy independent. I think it's time to disband the Department of Energy.
Declare victory and shut them down.
Go home.
I mean, and I don't just mean pare them back. I mean, zero it out. Sell the buildings.
Cashier them.
Yeah.
Let Rick Perry be the last secretary. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is now we are at pushing 40 minutes. And by the time I'm done talking, thanking you, we'll be at 40 minutes. Thanks to the members who watch this and who produce this. This is the only piece of really exclusive member content that we have on the website. We owe so much to you, and we're so grateful. We have created all kinds of opportunities for you to interact with each other. If you're a member, you can actually communicate through private messages through the member directory. You can write comments on our posts. posts. You can participate as a blogger on our website, and we love that stuff. You can also communicate directly with us. But all of that is made possible by your monthly or annual contributions as a member at BillWhittle.com. And we're grateful for you who have been with us for a long time, and for the people who have just signed up this week. Welcome, and we're glad you're here. We hope that you dive in with both feet and really become involved and engaged in this. We think you need a little encouragement, a little something away from the toxic sewer of social media that can build you up and restore you and equip you to go back into that toxic sewer and swim like your life depended on it. So for Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.